Hi guys, and welcome to Janette and her puzzles. Today I'm gonna give you 10 tips on how to solve giant puzzles. Now before we get into that, I wanna talk about giant puzzles first. So what even is a giant puzzle? In puzzling community, a giant puzzle is considered anything with 4,000 pieces and more. But in this video, all the tips that I'm gonna be saying, yes, I did do it specifically for giant puzzles, but they can be applied to any puzzles that you're doing, even if it's 1,000 pieces or less. But the reason why I specifically said for giant puzzles as well is because I'm gonna give you some space struggles, so how to solve puzzles, giant puzzles where you have lack of space. So the idea I got from there is also from Vicky, because when I was tackling my first giant puzzle, I didn't know how to do it because I physically didn't have enough space, because some of us don't have a table to keep the puzzle out that even fits a puzzle on it, that's first. But even to have a puzzle out for a duration of a few months, I don't have that privilege to be able to do that. So I watched her video, I'm gonna link it in the description box below as well if you wanna watch it, because she specifically talks about how to tackle giant puzzles with lack of space. But in this video, I'm going to talk about everything, all the important steps that I keep taking to make my puzzling as enjoyable as possible, and also include a little bit about how to do it if you're lacking space. So for anyone who's new here and doesn't know a lot about me, I have mostly been doing 1,000 and 500 piece puzzles before starting this channel. I've only done one 2,000 piece puzzle in all the years until I got the channel, and then I made a decision that every time I reach a new subscriber milestone, I'm gonna make a new giant puzzle. So I've done 2,000 pieces, 3,000 pieces, then I did the 4K, but it was separated in 3 bags. Then I've done 5K, 6K. And for the 7K, that was a different challenge because I needed a break from giant puzzles. So I'm gonna do the 7,000 piece puzzle for 10K subscribers, and then I'm gonna have to think about how far up I want to go with mixing the bags. But this is like just the overview for now, and I think it's time to go on the first tip. Tip number 1, setting up a puzzling area. Before even getting into puzzling, you have to figure out what the finished size of the puzzle is gonna be. Now, this is usually written on the sides of the box in inches and in centimeters. So this should give you an exact measurement of the finished puzzle. So then you know how big of a table or how many boards you're gonna need. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm not gonna go into great detail about how to do a puzzle with lacking space. If you wanna see it, you can watch Vicky's video that I linked in the description box below, or you can check my 5 and 6K subscriber milestone videos, because this is what I've been doing. I've been puzzling the giant puzzles at this table that holds maximum of 2,000 pieces at one point. So the thing that we are using in puzzling community very often are basically foam boards, and they come in multiple sizes. You can even cut them to the right measurement and stuff like that. For my puzzling, I normally use the biggest size that I can get in the shop in Slovenia, and it easily holds 1,000 piece puzzle together. It could possibly go to 1,500 pieces, but it depends on the size of the pieces and everything. So when I was doing the 6K puzzle, it actually took me 4 boards to do the whole puzzle, but the pieces were a little bit smaller. When I was doing the 5K puzzle that was from Ravensburg and it had normal sized pieces, I actually needed 4 boards as well, and I was even like, I had 3 rows that were off the board because it was too wide. So I've heard that for the 7K puzzle you need 6 boards, but you have to do them like vertically, portrait direction. I never know, I always mix them up, but yeah. So for the 6K puzzle I had them lying down, but apparently for the 7K puzzle they are gonna be, standing up. Someone's already measured it, so that's good because I won't have to do it. But I will have to buy 2 more boards because I've only got the 4 big ones. So the boards that I have are these ones. I don't know how they're called, but I'm sure you've seen them because they're everywhere. People are using it, and this is the 5mm thickness because they've got different thicknesses. And for the biggest one, I always take the 5mm ones because otherwise it could break under the weight of the puzzle. So yeah, this is a very important first step if you want your puzzling experience to be good. If you're not using the boards and you're just wanting to use a table that's big enough to hold a puzzle, make sure to use a table that you're not gonna be missing, because this could take a while and you don't want to put stress on you that, oh my god, I need the table back, I need to clear the puzzle, because it's just gonna cause extra tension when puzzling, and this is something that we want to avoid. Tip number 2, become friends with sorting. I have to be completely honest with you, but there is going to be so much sorting with giant puzzles. If you don't like sorting, it's probably best to reconsider tackling a giant puzzle, because it's basically puzzling, sorting, and it's just going on forever. So one thing that I would advise is don't try to do too detailed sorting straight from the beginning, because until you actually get to know the image, once you start puzzling, you're not gonna see the details that you're gonna need for detailed sorting. So what I always do is just sort the puzzles simply by colors. Don't try to overthink, it's just when you have pieces in front of you, okay, yellow, orange, red, just do colors. Don't think too much about it, because you're just gonna possibly complicate your life for further down the line when you're gonna be needing some pieces and they're not gonna be where they're supposed to be because you're gonna try to overthink the process. So just do easy color sorting until you actually start puzzling. So once you start puzzling and you're gonna learn the details, learn the textures that you're gonna need, it's gonna be so much easier to just find what you need from the pile of pieces that you're looking for. I also always have a miscellaneous pile straight from the beginning, because some pieces are just so difficult to sort, and if you sort them just based on one color and then you could be looking for that one piece because it's got a different color on it, it's actually better to keep it in a miscellaneous pile as opposed to sort it by color when it's not a specific color, because then you're gonna have to go through all the piles to find that piece as opposed to just go through the miscellaneous. And again, once you go deeper into puzzling, it's gonna be easier to know what you're looking for, and then the textures are gonna stand out, the specific colors and all of that. So it's gonna be easier to also get rid of the miscellaneous pile. Tip number 3, do the frame and mark the sections. I would always start a puzzle with the frame, even when I do speed puzzling. I've noticed that it's so much easier for me to just have the frame done and then just do the image from the inside, because one thing when you have the frame done, and I know some people don't puzzle like that and that's okay, I'm just going from my personal experience, so I know it might not work for everyone, but it always works for me. But specifically for giant puzzles, because it's gonna be so massive that it's gonna be difficult to keep track of where something goes. So the reason why I like to do frame in the beginning, even if you're doing it on multiple boards, it's because once you have the frame, then you know where to put assembled sections. So even if it's just roughly where it's supposed to go, it's still gonna be easier, because even later on when you collect some pieces and you're gonna be like, oh, this belongs to, I don't know, this red tree in the right corner, and even if you don't have it assembled, you can just put a pile of pieces and start putting them where the tree is. Because if you're just gonna keep doing smaller piles, it can become quite chaotic. So that's why I like to have the frame done, because it helps you put the assembled sections in once it's done. It's a clearer overview of the entire puzzling. Now, one thing that it's also important if you're puzzling on different boards is when you have the image, mark the sections of where each board is gonna end. So I've done that on the 6K puzzle because there was no poster. Usually, for instance, for the 5K puzzle, when it was split into 4 sections, even though this is not the puzzle that I was doing as a 5K puzzle, but it had the same poster, so literally 1/4 of the poster was one board that I was working on, so it was really easy to know where goes what, because I would just, change a poster on a different area and I would know what I was working on. But with the 6K puzzle there was no poster, so I just marked the image with a pencil, just marked where the board ends, so I knew exactly what goes where. Tip number 4, don't overthink puzzling. Same as with sorting, don't overthink the puzzling either. So what I do is when I have sorted piles of different colors, I would just pick the pile that is the smallest, bring it close to me, lay all the pieces flat out, and then I would just collect similar shade of color or specific texture or something and just start making smaller sections. And then when I'm kind of stuck with one color, I would move on to the next color and the next until I go through the entire sorted piles. And then once I do all the colors, I would go again from the beginning from the same color again. And the reason why I'm saying this is because usually sorting is not that straightforward as you would want, so when we have a yellow piece, it could have some green on it or some blue on it or something like that. And that piece that was needed in the blue section when you assembled it is actually in the yellow pile because it had a bit more yellow on it. So that's the reason why I like to return through all the colors again, because there are so many new pieces that are gonna stand out, they're gonna be able to connect to other already assembled sections. And then of course, once you have the sections assembled, make sure to put them into your working area. That's where you had the frame done, so you can know where to place all the assembled sections, because it's going to be so much easier to build from there. Now, one thing that I would like to advise when doing giant puzzles is what I noticed worked for me is to puzzle at least 3 hours in one go. And what I mean when I say for 3 hours in one go, it doesn't mean in one sitting, okay? Because I know it can become a little bit painful, you know, your back could start aching or something like that. But just like, even with shorter breaks, just try to do 3 hours at least in one go, because what happens then is you really get to learn the image that you're working on, even if it's just one section. But then some pieces are gonna start to stand out so much that you didn't see before. And especially if you take breaks from puzzling, like for instance I puzzled one day every week, and after a week you kind of already forget the image a little bit. And if I only did 1 or 2 hours of puzzling, it wasn't enough. I didn't really learn the image. So then the next week when I went back into it, it took me almost half an hour again to get the ball rolling. So that's why I think if you do a little bit longer sections, it's going to be very beneficial with remembering the image. And it's going to be so much easier for next time when you do the puzzle to get straight back into it without trying to remember what you're even looking for. Another thing that I kind of already mentioned in the frame section of the video, once you start puzzling, you're gonna see things that are standing out, because when you're gonna focus on one section, of course at one point you're gonna get stuck, so you're gonna have to move on to the next section. But then when you're looking through pieces for that section, you might find some stuff that belong to the other one. So that's why when you have the frame done, if you find the piece that you know where it goes, just put it where it's supposed to go. If you have all the puzzle on the table. If you don't, if you're puzzling on the boards, this is the tip that I actually got whilst I was already building the 6K puzzle, and oh my god, it honestly saved my life. Okay, it didn't actually save my life, but it made my puzzling so much easier. So when I was puzzling one board, I had 3 piles for other 3 boards. So then every time I would see a piece that I knew exactly where it went. So in the beginning, I kept lifting the boards up and trying to find where the piece goes. It was just so long and annoying. So after that, I was just like, okay, this is board number 1, this is board number 2, board number 3. And let's say I was working on board number 4. And I would just collect pieces. And then once I came to a point where I got stuck and I swapped the boards, I already had a pile of pieces to go in. I think it really sped up my puzzling, or like rather eliminated the searching process, because I already found the pieces and then I didn't need to go look for them again. And it also made it so much more enjoyable. Tip number 5, use the sorting trays. Honestly, just use sorting trays or boards, whatever you want to call them. Your back will be thankful, I promise you. So this is the size that I prefer to use when I'm puzzling. So this is the same board that I showed you before for the big one, but this one is thinner. I think this one is 3 or 2 millimeters, because it doesn't have to be that thick. And this is the size that is my favorite sizes. I think majority people uses this size as well, because it's easy to carry around. It doesn't take up so much space, so I actually absolutely love them. One thing that's not that great about them is that they can be quite slidey. So if you like knock it somewhere, the pieces might slide down. So you have to be a little bit careful when working with them. I know some people use different trays that are made from a different non-slippy material. So it's completely up to you. Whatever you use, you can even use, you know, cardboard or whatever floats your boat basically. But do use sorting trays, and there are multiple reasons for that. Yes, I mentioned the back. You don't have to reach over the puzzle, because when you have a giant puzzle, it's not going to be close to you. There's going to be sections that are going to be on the other side. So when you actually have a board with pieces on, first of all, and you can rotate the board to find the right direction of the pieces that you need. Also, if you're working on the section here, you can just bring a board from further down there, bring it here, and you have like close proximity when you're working on the specific piece, because it's so much easier to find what you're looking for when you have them next to each other, as opposed to like, oh, what am I looking for again? And then going on the other side of the table, and it's like, oh wait, was that what I was looking for? And then, you know, it's just a long way and it's not that enjoyable. So definitely use the sorting trays. And you don't have to have the pieces nicely arranged on them. You can just have them literally, I don't know, every color on one board or something like that. honestly, just to have them close and just so you don't have to reach over, and you're gonna see. That's why I said, like, this video, it could be applied to any puzzle, even a 1,000-piece puzzle. Like, I use sorting trays for 1,000-piece puzzles as well, because it just makes the puzzling more enjoyable this way. Tip number 6, don't forget to shape sort. I know some people absolutely hate shape sorting or even see it as a weakness, but trust me, it's a life changer. Every time I feel stuck and I feel like my brain is just like, oh my god, what is this puzzle? I can't think anymore. I would just do shape sorting every time I get stuck. And honestly, every time I do, it becomes so much quicker because you have so many different shapes and just eliminating the searching process. Because at the end of the day, we just want to puzzle, right? And not doing shape sorting is not actually extending the puzzling time, it's extending the searching time because it takes you longer to find the piece that you're looking for. So with any puzzles, you normally have 4 to 6 shapes. So immediately, if, for instance, you have 2 outs and 2 ins like adjacent, you're gonna know that you don't have to look for standard pieces or like the 3 in, 1 out and all of that. So immediately you're just gonna eliminate those pieces, which means that your searching process could almost half in time. Basically, one thing that I would say that is different with speed puzzling, so ever since I started speed puzzling, I've realized that when I shape sort, I don't have to actually neatly put the pieces in lines, which is what I used to do, but it was a bit of waste of time. When you're puzzling leisurely, especially giant puzzles, take your time and do the shape sorting properly and do it like in order, in nice lines. The reason why I'm saying that is, again, because when you do shape sorting on the boards, and then you're looking for a specific piece and you know exact shape of the piece, you can just rotate the board into the same direction as the piece in the puzzle, and then it's gonna be so much easier to find what you're looking for because you're gonna know exactly where, I don't know, a line has to go through the piece or something like that. So yeah, it's gonna take a little bit longer, but trust me, it's gonna make it so much more enjoyable and it's gonna really, really, really reduce your searching process. Tip number 7, change perspective. This might be really random and some people might even think that it could slow you down, but really when we are puzzling teams, sometimes you get really stuck on your section. It's like, okay, can we just swap? You stand out, you walk around, you change the position, and then all of a sudden you see things that you haven't seen before. So I'm not necessarily saying puzzle upside down, you might see more, because it can be really confusing, especially if a picture is like an actual image of something that's supposed to be turned in the right direction. But even just from sitting down to standing up, or like going from a different angle, you know, just changing a little bit positioning from when you're looking the puzzle, it could really help you find the pieces that you're looking for. Sometimes, especially now in winter times when the daylight is gonna be, well, there's going to be a lot less of it and we're going to have to be using lights for puzzling. You can get reflection as well. So from one angle you can have different reflection, and then when you go to the other angle you might see the colors differently because there won't be reflection. So yeah, don't be afraid to stand out, don't be afraid to change, even flip the puzzle upside down or whatever. Like even when I do the sky, I normally just like flip the puzzle around, usually because I like it to be closer because I don't like to stretch over, but also like you kind of see the puzzle differently. I don't know how to explain, you have to try it. It might not work for you, but it does work for me, and I've noticed when we puzzle in teams, a lot of people say that they see different things when they change where they're sitting or standing. So just try it out, you might be surprised with what you find out. Tip number 8, take breaks. Again, we are completely different people, so it might not work for everyone, but I can guarantee you that there will be a point where you will get stuck with the puzzle. When I say stuck, it doesn't mean like you're gonna get frustrated and wanted to flip the table over, but there are always points when it slows down. So you're gonna have a section that it's like, you know, really colorful or something like that. It's gonna be so easy to do. And once you use all the obvious sections up, you're gonna hit the slow zone. I would like to say that. I just made that up. It might stick, I don't know, but I'm gonna be calling it a slow zone for this video, okay? So you hit the slow zone, which means that everything that you've got now in front of you is kind of similar to each other, and to really figure out where something goes, you have to learn a specific color, specific texture, but it doesn't stand out that much because obviously we've already used up the obvious pieces, you know, and all the obvious pieces that you use then are going to be different pieces. They're going to be standing out a little bit more, but with every sorting there's going to be less and less of that, and that's where you normally hit the slow zone. And nothing is wrong with that. It happens to everyone. It can happen on a 1,000-piece puzzle, even on a 500-piece puzzle. It's normal that once you finish the easy sections, it's gonna have to be a bit more difficult. So what I would advise you to do if you start feeling like the puzzle is not moving anywhere and you're starting to feel a little bit frustrated with it, even maybe to a point where you're like, oh, I have to go do the puzzle again. And it's like, you don't want this when you go puzzling. You want it to be like, oh, I want to do the puzzle. Oh, I'm so looking forward to do the puzzle. Not like, oh, I have to do it, because it's like, it becomes a chore as opposed to something that you enjoy. So if you ever hit that point, because mark my words, giant puzzles can be out for a long time because obviously life happens and we cannot prioritize puzzling constantly, you know. So sometimes it's gonna happen that you're just gonna have to take a break from puzzling and then come back to it and all of that. So one thing that I've noticed is when I had the puzzle out for 2 weeks, it drove me insane because every single day I was looking at a puzzle and it would just be like, I don't know how to say it, but it's like in the back of my mind was like, you have to puzzle me, you have to puzzle me, you have to work on me, you have to finish me. And it was constantly. And then even when I was doing other things, I was kind of like thinking about the puzzle and how I should be puzzling instead because I have to finish the puzzle. And once that happened, I've realized that it's not enough to just take a mental break from the puzzle. Sometimes you actually have to take a visual break from the puzzle, if that makes sense. So if you have a table with the puzzle on and it's, I don't know, somewhere in the basement or whatever, or on the attic, and you don't actually get to see it, you just see it when you go there to puzzle, that's fine. But if you have it, let's say, on your dining table, and every day you walk in, you see the puzzle and you know that you have to do it. Or if you're doing it even on the boards, if you're lacking space and you have it on the boards and the boards are always out and you're like, oh, I should be doing the puzzle, should be doing the puzzle. Like, hide it. Honestly, if it's on the boards, even easier. You can just take it off, put it under the bed. This is what I used to do. Just slide it under the bed, out of sight, out of mind, or how they like to say. If it's on your dining table or something, somehow safely try to put like a tablecloth over it or something like that, just so you physically don't see the puzzle, because sometimes it can get really frustrating to keep looking at it. Not even frustrating, it's not the right word, but like, you're starting to feel guilty for not puzzling, and then when you do something else instead, you feel guilty doing that, and it's just not relaxing. Again, this could be completely my thing. Like, it could be possible that no one else has that, but because it happened to me and it was really life-changing when I actually put the puzzle away, I was actually looking forward to coming back to puzzling. That's why I just wanted to share this with you in case someone else have the same mental struggles as me. Tip number 9, the use of repeat cut pattern. For someone who's new to giant puzzles, not even necessarily giant puzzle, even Ravensburger's 3000 pieces have repeat cut pattern. So what happens is, because the puzzles are so big, they don't actually have printing machines that are big enough to do a giant puzzle. So what they do is they basically use the same cuts and they split the puzzles in half and do the same cuts on 2 sides of the puzzle. Normally for 3000 piece Ravensburger, what I've noticed is that the repeat cut pattern is like, I don't know if I'm showing this well, but yeah, I'm gonna put some pictures into the video so you're gonna see what I'm talking about. So the way it repeats is different for every puzzle, and obviously different brands are gonna have different repetition with different piece counts and all of that. So I can only say for the puzzles that I've actually done. So 5000 piece puzzle, for instance, comes in one bag, but it's got 4 repeat cut patterns. And then the 6K puzzle that I did from Schmidt, it actually comes in 2 bags with 3000 pieces, but it also has 4 repeat cut pattern repetitions. So the reason why I'm saying this, and again, this is just a mental thing that was really helpful for me when I was doing even a 6K puzzle. For 5K puzzle, I was actually using the repeat cut pattern because the image was just insane. But one thing that I really appreciated with the 6K puzzle, even though I didn't use it, is just the fact that I knew that I had it. Okay, and again, like I said, it's more of a mental thing than actually a thing that I would need to finish the puzzle. But once you complete one section and you know that you've got the repeat cut pattern, if you get stuck, you eliminate your searching process because you know exactly which shape you're looking for. So even if it's like a single color section, you have no idea what you need and you just have the repeat cut pattern, you know exactly which piece you need, which means that you only have to go through one shape of the pieces, not 2 or 3 or like all of them, but literally just one shape, and it's going to reduce your searching time so much. There is one bad thing that comes with repeat cut pattern though, and this is that you can get a perfect misfit. So if the colors are, you know, very different, or like there's so much going on the image, it's very difficult to actually get a misfit. But for instance, with the 5K puzzle that I was doing when everything was green and I didn't have daylight, I even did the frame wrong. I didn't realize that. And then because I was going from the frame up and I had the wrong pieces attached to it, and then I figured out later on, because I got to a point where I was putting one piece in and half of it fit perfectly and then the other half didn't, and I'm like, what is going on? And it was during the day, so I saw that, because if I puzzled with the lights on, I didn't see it the night before. So then I figured out that I had about 15 or 18 pieces put in incorrectly because they were perfect misfits. So this is something that happens. That's why also a lot of people don't like to mix the bags, because it can increase your chances of getting perfect misfits. But in my situation, I decided I will mix the bags for 7,000 piece puzzle because I want to challenge myself and push my limits. But it's completely fine when people don't mix the bags, because it will make it a bit more difficult. It's already more difficult because of course you get a higher number of pieces, but then the misfits don't help. Tip number 10, no time limit. One thing that taught me a lot is when I put time pressure on me, and this is the same time when I had the puzzle out and I was like, okay, you have to finish the puzzle in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I don't remember how long it was. When I put that time pressure on me, or like time limits, I didn't want to puzzle anymore, because then it was like, oh, I just puzzle and I just enjoy puzzling. It was like, no, you have to do it. So every time I was doing anything else, I know I've already kind of covered that in the previous section, but it was constant guilt of not puzzling. And that also came because I put time pressure on me. And when I was doing the 5K puzzle, I had a lot more of that, because I was like, okay, I have to finish puzzle before I go to holidays. I have to finish puzzle before I go to the worlds. I have to finish puzzle. And it kept changing, because every time I would give myself a time limitation by when the puzzle needs to be done, I kind of resented the puzzle, because then it felt like pressure. It felt like I had to do it as opposed to wanting to do it. So that's why I would say, if you're doing a giant puzzle, don't put it out, you know, for instance, using a dining table, and then it's like, well, it has to be done before Christmas because we're gonna host the dinner. Don't do that to yourself, because you're gonna resent the puzzle and it's gonna completely lose the point, because at the end of the day, it's the most important that we enjoy when we are puzzling. We are puzzling to relax, take our minds off of things and stuff like that. It's not, you don't want it to become a must. You want it to stay a want. It's like, I want to puzzle. I want to go back to puzzling. And also one thing to remember, this is not necessarily connected to the time management, but as I mentioned before, you will get to a point where you're gonna get stuck, and you want to make the puzzling enjoyable. And that's why I said don't put time pressure on you, because it's not gonna be as enjoyable as it could be. One thing I've really figured out helped me is I started listening to the podcast, because normally when I puzzle, I just put the music on and then I'm just puzzling and I'm singing along, and that works fine for like 1,000-piece puzzle because it's done in, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 hours. But when you're doing a giant puzzle, when it takes, you know, 40, 50, 60 hours, the songs are kind of gonna lose, well, they're not gonna lose meaning, but they can just become a bit too much. So what I did is I put a podcast on, and even when I hit the slow zone, it didn't matter because I was listening to the podcast. And yeah, okay, it probably did make me puzzle a little bit slower because I had divided focus. But even when I slowed down, when I hit the slow zone, it didn't matter because I was listening to the podcast. So even spending 5-6 hours on the puzzle didn't feel like I wasted time because I only put, I don't know, 50 pieces in or whatever because I got stuck. And it came to a point when next time I had to puzzle, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to listen to the podcast again. So I combined something nice and enjoyable, they could potentially become a little bit difficult and frustrating at points with something that I also love doing. And when I combine them together, even the hard times weren't hard. So that's why I said don't put time pressure on yourself, because when you're gonna hit the slow zone, it's just gonna frustrate you even more. So just make sure to enjoy the puzzling process, and if you ever feel stuck, do something that's gonna work for you, even if it means take a week off puzzling. Don't take more than 2 weeks though, because then you might forget the image and it's going to be more difficult to get back into it. But you can easily take a week off, put the puzzle away, don't look at it, put the podcast on, whatever is going to help you to enjoy the puzzle more, because with giant puzzles, they will take a while to finish and you want the process to be as enjoyable as possible, because again, otherwise, what's the point? So these are the tips that I've learned. I'm not a giant puzzle expert or anything like that, because as I mentioned, I've only done one 3,000 piece puzzle, 4,000, 5 and 6, you know, so that's basically all I've done out of the giant puzzles. And even the 4K puzzle had 3 bags. I didn't mix them together because of the repeat cut pattern. So I'm no expert, and if you have any suggestions, you can put it in the comments down below, because I know that it helps other people to read them as well. So I really do hope that it's gonna help you tackle maybe your first giant puzzle, or not necessarily even a giant puzzle, but just the next higher piece count number that you've been maybe scared to tackle because you didn't know what to do. I know I'm repeating myself by now, but just make sure to keep enjoying the puzzle. And I shouldn't even be saying that, but if the quality of the puzzle is not good, none of these tips are gonna be helpful, because if you don't know if the pieces actually fit together, if you don't know if it's a misfit, those puzzles should be just binned. So this video is not for poor brands, because for poor brands they shouldn't even be assembled. But when you have good brands puzzles, then all the tips could be beneficial. So I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, it would really help me if you could press the like and subscribe button below, because it just helps me create more content like that, and also it's gonna push me to the 7K puzzle a little bit quicker, because I will be doing it when I reach the 10K subscribers milestone. So of course, now we got to a point where I have to teach you a new word, and it was a difficult one today because I didn't really know what to teach you, but I decided, because if I taught you how to say giant, it would be very difficult, because it's completely different if you want to use it as a giant puzzle as opposed to just giant something else, because of the Slovenian forms. So I decided I'm gonna teach you a Slovenian word that would kind of be applicable for the last video as well, but it could be applicable for every video. And I think it's good for you to know, because if you ever travel to Slovenia, you can always use it. So I'm just gonna teach you how to say thank you. And it's called hvala. 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 So now that I taught you that word, maybe I'm gonna be able to do the endings all in Slovenian and you're gonna understand what it means. So what can I say? Hvala for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it, and I'm gonna see you next time. Bye!